Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and oh my gosh, you guys, I am ridiculously excited about this. I finished this coloring book. Yep, 125 pages of challenging coloring, but I'm just beside myself. I just finished the last page, so I'd like to share it with you. I started this in January of 2023, and I am finishing it in November of 2024. So let's get started. This is Disney's Dream Collection, Thomas Kinkade Studios coloring book. Now, I used all different kinds of media, and you can see this book. It's been through a lot. This was my couch coloring book. So what I did is I tried to write down what medium I did use, and I also have tabs here when I colored it. So January 2023, and you know, I always struggle with these kind of clouds. Also, this is a lot of these pages are they're used with other media, right? And so I find them extremely challenging, but I absolutely love to try and match it. Now, sometimes my values are a little off. You know, you can see we have a darker purple here and a lighter one there. I don't concern myself a whole heck of a lot. The first one was with Black Widow. This was Avazar London. Almost every page is going to have Posca. I'm going to zoom in just a tiny bit more for the white highlights. So I'm not going to say that every time. June of 2023. So I did skip around a lot. This is August of 23. I used Inktense pencils and then Dick Blick Studio pencils over the top. I really enjoyed that combination and felt like I got really good results. The other thing I will tell you about this paper, it's very smooth and unforgiving. It's hard to work on. So I sprayed my entire book with Krylon Workable Fix. Actually, I think I used Grumbacher Workable Fixative. It was a really old can that I had, and it worked fantastic. I sprayed about 3 coats, probably, just light coats, going in different directions, and then I let it air out and dry for a minute or two, flipped the page, and did the next one. And I did the entire book that way. Some of the earlier works didn't have it, maybe the first 5 to 10 pages. So this one I used Cezanne colored pencils. You're going to note that I used almost every set of pencils I own at some point. This was Inktense and Prisma. And I really liked doing the Inktense for pages where you had a lot of a similar color or kind of a watercolor look maybe. And then I did use a little bit of stickles here. I just thought that might be kind of fun. You got to be real careful with stickles and coloring books, because then when you're coloring this one, sometimes you can pick up that texture if you don't put a piece of cardstock between it. So it's just something to be aware of, not something that you can't do. This was Cezanne pencils and Posca. I really like the Cezanne pencils. I think they're very good pencils. Or at least I didn't have any trouble using them. This one I did in Neocolor 2 with Prismacolor over the top. This was in August of 2023. This one was Dick Blick pencils along with a little Posca. You'll also know that some of these I don't blend out all of the colored pencil look. Others I do. It just depends on my mood. It depends on the type of drawing it is. You know, this one I use Castle Art Gold, and I did use a little bit of Thule Art here to do the yellow. So this one I did with Pablo colored pencils and a little bit of Color Soft. Once in a while, if I have two sets off to the side, I'll mix it up a little bit. But generally speaking, I try and challenge myself to one set of pencils. There are a few pages that are mixed. This one was done with Color pencils. This one was done with Arctics pencils. One of the things that I will note is I did have trouble with getting dark values on this paper. It is extremely smooth, and this is one of the ones that was done before I sprayed the workable fixative. I do find that that helps to spray workable fixative on ultra smooth paper. Okay, this one was done with Color Soft and Prisma. And of course a little Posca. This one was done with the Brute Fooner squares. This was a challenging one to really kind of get that washy kind of feeling, like under the sea here. It ends up being a little too bright. But one of the things that I found is you can use a chalk marker like this. The chalk markers like you write on chalkboards with. And I found that this is October of 2023. I just recently found this, and I'll point it out in a couple of pages. I do like this one for that. This one was Castle Art Soft Touch and a little bit of Thule art. Once again, you'll see that I did not use a blender pencil or anything. That's just a personal choice. I know it drives some people crazy. I really don't mind on some pages, but then on others like this one, it is all essentially blended out, maybe a little bit more. This one I used Artisto watercolor pencils, and this is a very good budget set of pencils, and I thought I got a really nice vibrant color from them. This was with the Artisto watercolor pencils as well. You can see there's a little tiny bit of warping, just a little bit down here. Not too much, but I really enjoy these watercolor pencils. There is a review on the channel if you're interested. This one was done with Pablo and a little bit of Prismacolor. If I remember right, there was just a couple of colors that maybe Pablo didn't have that I wanted for this page. This one was done with, it's a mystery. Total mystery. Honestly, I don't remember. I really don't. And I didn't write it down. If I had to guess, I'd probably say, I don't know, Prisma, but that's highly speculative. Okay, next up, this one is Artisto watercolor. I was really enjoying how those were working. This one was done with Pitt Pastels, a little bit of Thule art, and a Posca pen. So this is like the chalk pencils, right? The pastel pencils. So I thought this would be a good test because of the color scheme. Not my favorite medium to use. I think it did fine. You know, I did go in with the paint pen afterward to do some of the effects, but you know, it did what it needed to do. Did I love it? No. Did I hate it? No. Okay, this one was done with Posca pencils, which I do really like. There's only 36 pencils, and so it was a little bit of a challenge. And then I did use a little Posca paint marker to do some of the flowers. All right, Beauty and the Beast. This was also done with the Posca markers, or pencils, I mean. Next up is Posca pencil and pens. So a little bit of the marker pen here and the Posca pencils. I really do enjoy them. They're a very soft pencil. There's a review on the channel of them if you're interested. This was done with Color Soft. Color Soft is another pencil I enjoy using. And probably some Thule Art or Posca pen. Some of these pages were so challenging. Okay, this one was done with luminance colored pencils, and I very much enjoyed those pencils in this book. This was prior to the workable fixative. Can we speak? No. This was back in May of 2023. So, like I said, early on, I wasn't spraying them, and then I just found it really made a difference, and I enjoyed it. This one is done with Color Soft colored pencils. Once again, very challenging, this whole, how do you blend all this out and make it, this very kind of watercolor look without using watercolor. Because my challenge to myself, I know I can go find a medium to do that, but I want to challenge myself. Now this was done with Artisto pencils, not the watercolor, but the Artisto pencils. And there's a review on those on the channel as well. I feel like they perform very well. This was done with Pablo pencils. Sorry, I had something in my eye. And I enjoyed working with the Pablos on these. This was before the spray as well. This one was actually done with craft acrylic paint, like the little, these kind of paints, and you water it down. And so the entire base layer was done with that. And then I went over it with Color Soft colored pencils. And I really like how this turned out. And it added quite a bit of tooth to the paper, which you can kind of see in the texture, which I'm okay with. Like I said, I didn't blend this out. I'm okay with it. I think art is what it is, and it doesn't always have to look like paint. It can look like colored pencil, and I'm okay with that. This is another one that I was playing around with that same technique with the acrylic paint. And then I used Color colored pencils. Some of these pages are just more challenging than others, for sure. This was done with Holbein pencils. And I wrote down Arctics. So I don't know if I used, maybe I used, I want to say maybe one of the greens is an Arctics. Oh, I know what it is. I probably used Arctic pens here in the sky to blend out a lot of those lines. Okay, next up I used Sioux Color. This was very early on, January of 2023. I don't think this is a good reflection of Sioux Color. I enjoy working with those pencils, but I struggled a lot on this page. And this is one that I may go back at some point and see if I can upgrade the page. I always hesitate because part of me enjoys looking back and seeing progress or how I've evolved as a colorist, right? Have I improved? I do feel like I've improved a lot, like in the shading of the trees and kind of in the leaves and whatnot. Just experimenting with different techniques. Okay, next up is this one. It was done with Holbein pencils. I very much enjoyed coloring this page. I debated very long and hard, though, about this one, blending it out. But part of me really liked that my little characters were essentially blended out and the rest wasn't. So I kind of enjoyed the juxtaposition of that. But it was something that I debated. This one was done with Polychromos colored pencils. This is the only color along that I've done for this book. This is mostly my couch book when I'm watching TV or something, but there is a color along on the channel of this page. Next up is this one. I used Posca pencils and pens. So a little bit of Posca paint pen and a little bit of, and the rest was done with Posca pencils, which I'll remind you only has 36 pencils. So I enjoyed that page very much. I just love the dwarves. Okay, next up is this one. This was done with mixed markers and mixed colored pencils. So it was whatever was out on my little table, and it was one that I worked on and then I would come back to it. A lot of times I'll just sit down and do them in one sitting. But I believe this was in June of 2024, which I was preparing to go on vacation. I was trying to get videos out and a lot of things were going on. So that's part of why it was done with mixed pencils. All right, next up is this one. It was done with Posca pencils. Really enjoy this. I like all the white dots. I feel like that really added a nice kind of like sparkle without adding anything metallic. This is one that I just didn't like. I had colored pencil up here. I chose to go over it with marker. Now I'm wishing I kind of didn't. I may go in with a white and try and, you know, just go in like this and maybe lighten it up a little bit and try and blend it a little bit. I think that will make a difference and it won't be so in your face. So I am going to be doing that on this page. Let me get you centered again. So just an FYI, I have a baby whip right there. All right, next up is Avazar London. If you've been on my channel, you know I do adore these pencils, and I used to recommend them a lot for beginners because they came in a case. If you watch for sales, you could get them for 30 bucks or so. Regular price was more like 45 for 130 pencils, which I thought was fantastic, especially given that it went in a case. They blended beautifully. They have beautiful colors. Now you can only get them in the UK. In the United States, the last time I looked, I could only get like the 12. So I was very disappointed with that. But I love how they color. I just do. All right, next up is this one. I used Holbein colored pencils. Nothing super exciting to say about that page. This one was one that was done with the Sioux color, and you can see they're very vibrant and fun pencils. And so that's why I didn't feel like that other one was, you know, when it just looked all dreary and whatever. They're nice colored pencils for the price. You can get, I think, 180 for like under $30. Next up is Crayola. I absolutely detest using Crayola pencils. I have seen people do beautiful work. I did a color along on the channel that I thought turned out pretty well. It was more vibrant than I thought it was going to be. But you can see on this paper, it just looks like it's been bleached in the sun. And you can tell from all of my other works that this is kind of an anomaly. And trust me, this is not one layer of Crayola. So, and this was definitely sprayed with fixative prior to. All right, next up is this one. It was done with Pablo colored pencils and a little bit of paint pen. This page was the very last page I colored. I'm doing a buddy color with Jamie's Life 101, I believe his channel is. He wanted to do a buddy color in this book, and so I said, well, I have one page left. So we agreed to this page. And I used Black Widow pencils, and you know, I thought like it turned out pretty okay. So next up is this page. It was done with Color Soft pencils. I adore using those pencils in this book. I love the vibrancy that I can get with them, though it is a little bit more of a muted palette than some pencils. Next up, this was done with Avazar London and some acrylic paint pens. For some of these rocks were, they were a nightmare. The grass was a nightmare. The tree was a nightmare. It was a struggle all the way around. I felt like in the end, you know, we got there. Is it my favorite page? No. All right, next up, this was done with Holbein and then, of course, Posca. Beautiful pencils, love them. This was also done with Holbeins. Really enjoy working with those pencils. This was done with Artix markers, Color Soft pencils, and Light Fast pencils. So those happen to be the pencils I had out on my table. And of course the Artix markers here. Next up is this page. This was a more recent one. I actually based this in Super Tips, which I thought worked really well for doing a big background like this where it's a lot of the gray or whatever. I just don't really particularly like this page. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this much gray. Yeah. Next up is this one. I use ChromaFlow pencils on it. I believe let's see, August 2024. So I believe this was the 150 set of ChromaFlow. Next up, I use ChromaFlow with the Artix paint pens. And here's where I use the chalk marker a lot up in here. You can see it's kind of smushed on there. I just feel like it adds a little bit of a nice kind of foggier look. It does make it push back into the background a little bit. You can see how much more clear this is down here than up here. Is it perfect? No. But I do feel like it has its place. I used it here. You can also use Posca white. You just have to be quick to smear it. This I used the Light Fast colored pencils on, and I absolutely loved using the pencils. There's a full review on the channel if you want my opinions on the pencils as a whole and their palette, but I did very much enjoy using them. Next up is this one. I used Holbein colored pencils. You could tell I was excited when I first got my Holbeins. I used them on quite a few, but they work really nicely in this book as well. Okay, next up is this page. I used mixed mediums or mixed colored pencils because it took different colors here in order to kind of even come close to this color here. it's a very unusual color. I even looked in my Castle Arts Harmonious pencils, trying to find something. But in the end, I think it worked out okay. And then I used a little bit of acrylic marker in the window right here and up in here. This one was done with the Light Fest pencils as well. You can see the beautiful purples. Light Fest has some really nice deep colors, especially in the purples. Okay, this one was done with this acrylic wash technique. And one of the things that I realized is that you have to be careful. It adds so much more tooth that even though I was matching the pencil, when it laid down, it picked up a lot of pigment. And so you end up with a much richer, deeper, brighter color than you would. And you can see in all of it, even in the grays and the greens and stuff, that happened. So this was a horrendous page. There's so much little tedious stuff in here. How do you make it, do you go, okay, 1/2 inch over here? You do your best and drive on. But acrylic mixed pencils and the acrylic wash technique. Next up is this one. I believe, if I remember right, this is ChromaFlow, though I didn't write it down, so I won't swear to it. A couple of times that happens because it's my couch book. This one was done with Starjoy pencils and fine liners, just for some of the little details. But yeah, Starjoy Gold. That's the only ones I have. So the Starjoy Gold. This one was done with ChromaFlow. So maybe I was wrong about this one because maybe I was remembering this horse. But ChromaFlow pencils. Earlier on. This one was done with a mix of pencils and markers and acrylic wash and all of the things. Extremely challenging page. Very challenging. You could tell that this was done with some sort of like acrylic paint. You got the see-through rainbow down here. You've got this whole waterfall. I did my best. I'm happy with it. I am. But don't look too close. Same with this one. This was done with light fast colored pencils and then some acrylic paint markers. And that's going to do it, y'all. That was the end of the book. Now, I enjoyed this book very much. There's at least one other Disney one. There's also a Thomas Kincaid where it's his artwork. There's a bunch. I'm taking a break for a little while. I picked a much simpler one. I do enjoy the whole mimicking thing. I think that's one way to hone your color mixing skills. And then the other way is challenge yourself to create the palettes. I think they're two different skills when it comes to coloring. And so I do enjoy doing both. If you've stuck with me to the end, I so appreciate you. I hope you'll consider subscribing. And until next time, happy coloring. Thank you for watching another video from Jazzydoodledesigns. If you enjoy adult coloring content, please consider subscribing. You can now find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I welcome all comments and suggestions. Don't forget to like the video before you go. And until next time, take care.